Finally, Katrina and Carlos, you guys are here with me. Thank you so much.
Excited to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'm super excited and so proud of you that you're doing this.
All right, thank you. It's been like one of those dreams I thought would happen like 10, 20 years from now. But then I decided to like not really start. It was more of I'm just going to do like one or two and see. But then now I'm like, well, now I can't stop. Once you start, why are you going to stop? So it happened. So we'll see. I don't know where it's going, but hopefully it takes some direction. All I know is that I'm doing what I want to do. And I feel like as long as you're feeling good about where you're going and what you're doing and you're in good vibes about it, it can only go somewhere good.
Love it. Yeah.
So I wanted to bring you guys on because I love you guys as a couple. I've known you for 20 years now.
Plus, yeah, 20 plus. Because we've been together for 20 years and I knew you before.
So amazing.
I did some quick math in the car.
Yeah?
20 plus. Yeah.
20 plus years. Unbelievable. Yeah. That makes us feel really old. Yikes. So, and I saw you guys get together. We've been following up with each other and friends for all this time, and seeing your transition into all these different incredible things for me and as a couple together, that you guys have been doing this together, has been incredible, and growing your family and doing all those things. So I wanted to hopefully for our audience set an example of when is a good time. There is no good time. It just happens when it happens. But also like as a couple, how you guys managed to pull this off and do this together when I think that's not the common thing, right? You don't really find couples that go through the same spiritual journey, fitness journey at the same time. It's usually one starts first, the other one never really commits, then the other one might go, but then the other one might drop off, or, eventually one kind of falls back into the habits, bad habits. And then, so it's kind of hard to stay the course. We all met in the fitness industry. We all used to work at the gym. I always admired both of your consistency to always till today still wake up in the morning and go to the gym, because it takes so much discipline and consistency to do that. So I want to know how both of you have kept this going for so long, and how you've evolved from fitness, not just looking good physically, but also taking care of your body inside. You're a dietitian, you're a personal trainer, and a holistic health coach. So obviously this is like the perfect like match made in heaven, because you could both know how to take care of yourselves on the nutrition side and the fitness side. And most recently, I've seen how you guys now are also making a big push to taking care of your mental side. And that's really what I want to get to. But before we do, tell me how you got there, how you went from fitness and nutrition to now spirituality and consciousness and all that stuff.
I think it's both of us had a commitment to grow. So I don't know so much that we were always on the same page or pace, but our commitment to grow and communicate that. So every time we got home, we acknowledged that we could potentially not be the same person every time we got home. So it was always checking in. So a week later, we weren't like, but who is this person sleeping next to me? It's not clear cut by no means. Thankfully, the exercise part of it didn't take much discipline. That was more passion and love. We've been doing it for a long time. So we started young enough to be oblivious as to what health even was.
Yeah.
It was definitely superficial at the beginning. You got to admit that. And then as time goes, you assume that superficial will translate to something deeper. And later you learn it doesn't. So it's like you learn that just because you look good doesn't mean you're going to feel good. And at some point, because of youth and being granted with good health, that can go longer than otherwise. So as far as like the nutrition is concerned, that was the same thing too. It was this very like superficial approach, a macro approach. What's going to make you bigger, faster, stronger, and at some point that would translate to health, until it doesn't. So that's where you start asking bigger questions, and you're forced to, okay, this is going to feed my muscle, but that's not feeding my stomach. That's going to feed my stomach, but it's not feeding my mind. And those realizations and that curiosity again fell into like that space of communication. So it's who we are. It's what we do. I think it's why we've been able to do it for so long, if not the industry would have passed us by. I don't know if so much our relationship, because we're connected at a way deeper level than that, even unconsciously. Now we're understanding more about that connection. But yeah, in terms of what we do for a living, it's never been hard to do because it's always been who we are.
Yeah, I don't think that our, what we did for careers really what brought us together. I can tell you that when I met Carlos, I had no intention of having a boyfriend or dating anybody. I mean, I grew up in a broken home. My first relationships were, very deep, but my boyfriend at the time cheated on me, and I was at the point where I realized, if I want to make it, I have to make it on my own because there's just no other way. And so I can't depend on another, on a husband, on something else. I have to just do this for myself and, grow. And so I just always came from this like do mentality. And as far as fitness, as he's mentioning, I grew up dancing and I loved moving my body. And once, I realized that that wasn't for me, it was like, okay, well, what's next? I have to move. I mean, that's what kept me just sane, I guess. It's what made me feel good. I recognized that from very early on. So the fact that we both were into fitness and training, that was kind of, that was a passion that brought us together. And it was even a while before you started training me as my trainer as well. And most people can't do that even. It's like...
That's harder than being boyfriend and girlfriend.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, because I have to wear the pants. Like we don't get to share them, and she definitely doesn't get to keep them.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you can't get injured. So, I mean, we come from being in an argument to like, okay, it's time to train. And it's like, we're two different, we've clocked out of that and gone into this.
Yeah.
So, but I think fundamentally, our values and morals and what was in our heart was the same. And that was, as we're mentioning, it's, living from your heart and working from your heart and doing things. They say how you do something is how you do anything. And I think that's how we've always approached everything that we've taken on. So in terms of me and my career, I grew up in a family where my dad came here from Cuba on the Peter Pan flights. And it was like, I'm not successful until I make it to the top. So you're talking about somebody who came at 16, with nothing and then became VP of, Wells Fargo Corporation and was very successful. But that was the drive, was like becoming somebody and financially. And in my house, you didn't, you weren't recognized unless you had straight A's and you had, it was like the doing mentality. So that's kind of how I was raised and where I was raised until I finally, life brings other things, for example, our children. And then you start to like slow down and sit back and be like, but wait a minute, what am I doing and where am I going? And so I started wanting to be very clinical, working in the hospital, because that meant you're with doctors and you're being recognized and people are seeing you, to kind of being thrown into this job at the VA where, it's like you're working one-on-one with patients and more outpatient counseling, which is like, for me, it was like, I can't make somebody change. I could teach them how to eat, but I can't change them.
Yeah. To
then recognizing, well, wait a minute, they can change if they're inspired to change. And so ultimately you're a vessel for that, for, to help inspire somebody and to help people grow. And I think just life, like I said, kind of taught us that. It's interesting because, we learned, I want to say maybe 5-6 years ago, before 2020 is when we started to realize it's not about counting calories and being thin and this and that. It's the food industry, what's in our food, what are we eating? And we actually went to visit a farm in Georgia and we spoke with farmers and we learned about the farming practices. Just one thing trickled to the next. And once you kind of clear your body of a lot of toxins or other things, then you start to realize that there's something more. So it's not just physically fit, but it's mentally fit. And then that's spiritually fit. So it goes from one thing to the next. And now I think we're at the point where we're ready to share with others as well.
Usually people that go into like big transitions and tap into spirituality or go into religion or, experience a moment, a shift in their life where they're like, okay, I can't do this anymore. Something's got to change.
That's easy.
What was it for you?
I'll speak for myself, but I think she'll agree. It's the birth of our first child. Right then and there, you just recognize what you're doing right now is not sustainable. We were known to be at the epitome of health and fitness, but you got the sense that it wasn't sustainable. Like, to live that way, just train hard, eat right, just this rigidness where you just identified with just the body. And then you have this child come in who has zero interest in your body and how you feel, and just very egocentric.
Body.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But just very like egocentric, me, train for yourself. Yeah, just from a place of like ego. And then you acknowledge that, oh, okay, so now I have to do things for someone else. Not only is she gonna need someone to be around long enough, so now it's longevity. You're thinking, whoa, she's gonna ask some real questions. Do you even have answers to anything other than eat your protein, baby? Like,
Right.
That's not gonna cut it. So the motivation was there, and then after that, just because we've always had a willingness to grow, our curiosity just shifted. So all that passion that we had for fitness and health and what we do, it just, all the focus went into this little girl. And it's like she mentioned earlier, how you do anything is how you do everything. So
We were all in.
all in,
Yeah.
still are. Very different from like how we were treating ourselves physically. This one is sustainable because love is stronger than any other muscle. So like the battery's still full. It's just a process that feels like, even though we've been on it for 10 years, our oldest is 10, we're just getting started.
Yeah.
So yeah, that alone excites us and gets us out of bed, just ready to go.
Yeah, and I think what I was lacking, I mean, at least for me, was more of that spirituality, that spiritual connection, because
Yeah.
I grew up in a house where, you were Catholic. That's what I was born into. And I went to church every Sunday, and I did the CCD and, the youth group. Not only that, but my parents were like, my dad was like the proctor. My mom did the holy, whatever. My sister was like the leader of the youth group. So it was like they were leading the church, and it just never sat well for me, when it was like, you do this wrong and you're going to hell. My heart was very close to that. So I think, you get to the point where you're like, that's not real. And then you close yourself off. So I remember one time we had a conversation, and it's like, we know there's something bigger than us. We believe in God. We know there's divinity, but what is that? And what are we going to teach, our children? And I think is that when you learn to be present and open yourself to whatever the present moment is bringing you, that's when the answers start to come. And one day she woke up and she said, I chose you to be my parents. I saw you, I saw my dad, I saw my mom, and I chose you. And that kind of catapulted into, wait a minute, like there's a bigger story. I think things just unfold. And same thing, I lived, everything has to be perfect. You have to pack this and pack that. And I'll never forget the first time I planned this, because our first child was not, you hear the moms that like the baby just sleeps, and they don't cry. And she was not that. I mean, she woke up very highly sensitive to the world around her. I remember taking those newborn pictures where the babies just like sleep through them, right? And the lady was sweating. Like, I've never had a baby that cried through the entire session, and that was her. It was very high strung. And so as a mom, it's like, what am I doing wrong? And I was breastfeeding, and it was scary. And I planned her first trip to the pediatrician's office. Like, what if she screams the whole way? What if she does this? And we went, and it was perfect. And none of that happened. And that was my first step, or my first introduction to like, you just have to stay present, because you can't control everything. And of course, once you start to open yourself up to that, and you think like, oh, I got this, I'm present all the time, then, life throws something else at you to test you and show you that you're not, until it's, deeper and deeper and deeper. So. And
what was the catapult for you? Was it also the birth of your first?
Yeah, so it started there. And then as we started to kind of delve into, the different realms of food and mental health and consciousness, I think, like I said, the doors just kind of started to open and lead us to other possibilities. I know Carlos started reading a lot of books about, I don't know how you call them, philosophy, psychology, spirituality.
you tend to recognize that you can't have one without the other. They all intertwine. Yeah, in terms of the body, I recognize that when you can quiet the body a little bit, the gut microbiome, which by the way was a big one for us.
Yeah.
You would think being a trainer and a dietitian that would have been like front and center for us. They kept that one from us for a while, but once,
Wow.
yeah. So we watched the docuseries that introduced us to that.
What's it called?
I don't know what it was called, but Dr. Hyman, who now is pretty mainstream at the time, this is years ago. This is maybe like 2018. Now
Okay.
Dr. Hyman's everywhere.
Yeah, he
but that-
catapulted like
yeah.
holistic health
yeah,
in the
so-
medical industry.
Was
right.
this on Netflix?
No, we had to like wait for an app to tell us when to go on. It was pretty intricate. It wasn't like
Okay.
Netflix weren't doing docuseries like this yet. But between the gut microbiome and how it responds to the environment and just everything outside of the physical aspect, yet still treating the body, just gets you to kind of like sit still, and you recognize that the less you do, the more at ease your gut is, the longer you can like live from the heart, so you can sustain that. And once you get there, everything just, it falls into place almost. You actually recognize that you're being taught all the time and it's here for you. And when you recognize that, you start to think, man, I'm going a little crazy because nobody else is talking about this. Nobody wants to acknowledge it. So what? So then you pick up a book, and that's what eases your mind. You're like, oh, okay, there's people who can actually scientifically tell you exactly what's going on.
Yeah, so I don't think I fell down, and then it's you hear that a lot, right? People go through this like major injury, major thing, and then it's like now I'm
Or
looking.
health issue.
Correct.
I did.
It actually for me was the opposite. I think the more we opened up to the world of consciousness and spirituality, that's when we started to experience the hard lessons. So after that, I would say the last 4 years, so between 2020 and 2024, we got pregnant out of nowhere, like the Immaculate Conception, pretty much, because we protect ourselves and we weren't trying to have more kids. And we lost a baby at 16 weeks. And there was no medical explanation for this. We had done all the tests, the 12-week ultrasound, everything was perfect. And then all of a sudden you go in one day and it's like, oh, there's no heartbeat, and then I had that. I had breast implants for 18 years. One of them ruptured shortly after that. So it was like, these things that I did in my past and never really thought about again. It's like bringing to the forefront, like, what are you going to do about this? And actually at the time I had them replaced because I didn't have the time or money or energy to think about. I started looking into an explant, and it's very expensive. The healing process is, a very long one. And so so much was going on. We had just lost a baby. I think we got mold in our house.
Yeah.
We had to replace all of our floors. So, and you're not planning for these things.
Yeah.
Then we got pregnant again right after I replaced my implants. And this baby I lost as well. And I delivered her at home. I was 12 weeks and we saw the whole fetus, So it was it's these experiences that you're like, wow, I thought like till now, I didn't really experience anything that difficult. And so that I think once you're open to that, again, you're going to get tested and you're going to learn a lot. And God is trying to make you go deeper, the divine or spirit or whatever whatever you believe in. It's like go deeper and deeper. So, again, I had another surgery, and then I actually just 7 weeks ago, I explanted my implants. And that was something that was a year, in the making. And I just realized, I spent all this time trying to look a certain way and be a certain way. And I thought that I was trying to better myself and gain self-confidence until I noticed that, no, it's just I didn't accept who I was or how I was, or I didn't think that was going to get me that bigger job or whatever it was that you're searching for. So it was a year of kind of looking in, and even I stopped exercising for a long time. I would go for walks, and I remember he was laughing because my 2024 goals was like exercise 4 times a week. That's something we've never written down because we've always just worked out.
Yeah.
But the world said like, slow down, stop, breathe, meditate, do a walk, and figure out who you are so that you can understand why you're here. And actually, during that time, I started to study astrology, which was very interesting for me, something that I've always kind of connected with, but always just like, again, superficially, like you read your horoscope on a magazine or a newspaper. And as I started to learn more about it, it was like, wow, like you can't make this stuff up. And I had my first reading with an astrologer about 6 months later, and he basically showed me where, Carlos and I, we came to this life to finish a love story that we couldn't have in our previous life. When you kind of put that into perspective, again, the ego says it's me and us and our love story, but the soul understands that love story is here for a greater purpose and for others. And then it helps you to kind of see where you can connect the dots. Like, okay, now I understand why this relationship has flourished and worked the way it has. And maybe had he not started reading those books, when I had personal experiences, he wouldn't have understood where I was coming from, or, vice versa. There's things that you're like, oh, I don't believe that, or it can't be true. And then there's just stuff you can't make up. And kind of a short version, we have a lot of planets in the solar system, and they put them into what they call houses. And the houses are split up into personal, like the me, maybe your value, self-worth, your home, your siblings, to the outer world, which is marriage and society and career. And so I have 5 personal planets in one house, and Carlos has 4. His planets, when you put our charts together, are in the house of the husband. And that includes the planet Jupiter, which is the planet that symbolizes the husband, as well as Mars, which symbolizes the man. So, it just kind of shows how no matter what, like this was going to be your husband. So after that, again, what we do with that and how we grow and evolve, I think that's up to us. I think
that's the human element right there.
Yes.
I mean, it was so amazing, like everything that you went through. I feel like most people, or so many people, would have just said, screw this spirituality conscious. I was way better off, just continuing what I was doing. Like nothing was wrong. Like why all of a sudden I try to tap into higher consciousness or tap into my higher self, and then all of a sudden all this stuff starts coming at me, and you still stayed the course, and you still believe that there's a greater meaning and a greater purpose to this. What do you think all these trials and tribulations were telling you, aside from slow down and aside from what is your greater purpose? And like how you were saying that you had this facade that you had to be someone else to be here. So if you're not that, which you've recognized and identified with for your whole life, who do you think you are now?
Well, first of all, there's no heaven if there's no hell. So you can think you're happy and believe you're happy, but you can't reach your greatest potential till you've fallen down, and again, our first daughter will show us that. She's just this passionate human who can go from, screaming, crying to like the greatest joy you've ever experienced in your life. And you just can't reach that potential until you go in and really see what's at the depths of you. I think partly, again, I've suffered with a health issue. I have endometriosis. So I kind of have, and again, these are things that I think life or us, happen for us. If I'm learning to take care of myself and I'm here to help others heal and take care of themselves, I have to have an experience. I can't just, I can't speak from a textbook. Anything that we speak or we teach, I think it's experiences that we've had. I can't explain why I lost these babies, but I can say that, again, they just taught you like to look and to try and figure out, why is this happening to me, and to look in, and then your body reacts to that. So I don't know the answer to that question fully. I think that's something that we're still figuring out, but we've come to a place where we trust, we've built a trust for what's there for us. I don't know if you have something to add to that.
No, yeah, it's trust, and you trying to answer that right here is just not going to happen. I don't think some of the ones you've mentioned are a pop quiz. Yeah, this one's going to take some time. You asked her how we got through that. I believe that's gratitude. I remember when we got the news of the first one, And she got home, and in a fraction of a second, I went from I thought I was going to lose every ounce of sanity I had to just getting swiped with what literally felt like a breeze, and just immediately felt what I now know to be gratitude. It's just like everything I had in my life to be grateful for just like flashed in between my eyes, and it wasn't a decision made for me. We were able to embody, we are not victims to this. Like, look at us, we are whole, we are happy, our daughters are gorgeous. Just that takes over anything else. And then it buys you time, because it's not from there, okay, let's go back to work the next day. It definitely buys you time.
But that's a feeling and a perspective, right? That you have to feel. You can't just, not
Right.
everybody can get to that point. And I think that that's something that we understood too, to have gratitude, like looking for the things, right? Like
it's a practice.
Yeah, my doctor called me. I mean, I had this in his office, and he called me on Saturday to ask me how I was doing. And I can look at that and be like, that I have an amazing doctor, or I was told you're going to have to wait a week before we can do this surgery to get this, baby that's no longer a baby out, because it's a delicate surgery. I was already, my uterus was the size of a 16-week baby. And I got a call, we have something for you tomorrow, so things just start to, I could have sat and cried and thought, why me? Why? But if you actually sit in gratitude and practice gratitude, you can recognize the things around you that are working for you too.
Yeah. And I just wanted to double down on one. Just she's right in terms of light, like for example, light and dark, there's one without the other. So that when you are in a dark place, you have to at some point recognize that the potential for that equal amount of light is now in your space. It becomes your responsibility to live that out, but it now exists. It automatically exists. One is not without the other. So Carl Jung has a quote that says, "No tree's branches can reach heaven without its roots reaching hell." And so if you want to laugh, you're going to have to cry.
Yeah.
Same token, if you're crying, just know that at some point that laugh is going to feel really good. So that's something you have to keep in mind. And that comes down to, I said it once already, which is just trust.
Yeah,
Just a
and
lot of
reiterating,
trust.
that's what we came here for, is to feel, is
Yeah.
to experience, is to understand, to evolve as a soul. You need to go through all the things. You can't just stay stagnant and come. I mean, you can, but where's the evolution in just sitting on a couch and watching Netflix all day? You have to go
Definitely
through
seems
the things.
easier sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
and
seems
that's
easier, like you
for
said.
sure.
that's the thing people don't understand, because I think a lot of our family, our friends, we put out this still like, oh, we're, we do practice gratitude and we're still healthy. And I don't know that everybody sees that we go through really hard times too,
Yeah.
So it seems easy for us, right? And you have each other, and you have these, kids. And that's the other thing. The kids are watching. I mean, that wasn't easy for me to explain to my two daughters of how I had, first of all, the babies, and also how I put breast implants in my body and I'm now removing them. That wasn't an easy conversation, but it's a great learning experience. And they're going to be so, much further ahead of us, I think, when it comes to that we're excited to teach them and grow while they're watching and also a part of it as well.
They build on those characteristics that are more important than, education by a book at school,
Yeah.
and like going through the math, science, and learning like resilience, making mistakes, or having realizations throughout the way. Like, just because you make a decision at one point in your life doesn't mean you have to live that through forever. There is a point in your life that you can change that.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can change that decision. You could say, you know what, this hasn't been working for me, and I choose to change it. This is a business example, but I had a discussion with one of my mentors about what happens when you made a business decision and then you want to back out of it because you realize that it wasn't the best.
Yeah.
Do you just continue because you've already invested, you're already committed, you already have a lot of people on board? Or do you just change the plan, how you've now discovered.
Right.
And he said, you changed the plan.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Immediately. Like, consider all the things that happened there.
Learn from them.
Just, there were money that was set aside, things,
Yeah.
but the new place is where you go.
Yeah.
And that's a great lesson that you can teach
Yeah.
the girls.
Yeah, there's a term for that. It's called dunk cost fallacy. So it's equivalent to being on the highway, acknowledging 10 minutes later you pass the exit and say, we're 10 minutes in, let's just keep going, not turning around.
Right.
So it's someone who's recognized a mistake, but because they've invested so much time and energy, they decide they're just going to like follow that through instead of changing course, which is obviously uncomfortable and trying. But yeah, you know better, you got to do better. That
Yeah.
we both like don't even have to entertain that. So
And the doors will open up for you. You know, like I said, in 2023, it was like, I know I need to get these implants out, but how am I going to do this? I can't afford it. I don't have the time. I don't have the energy. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to call the office. And I called from one day to the next. My appointment was scheduled with somebody virtually to have a consultation. And I think within a week, my appointment was scheduled for November. And I still didn't have a plan. And then things start to happen. I've been with my job for 13 years. And for the first time in 13 years, they offered me an opportunity to work on Saturdays from home for double pay. So, you know, you're like, the money came. I didn't have to, you know, do anything. I didn't have to search for things. It presented. The doctor was there, the office, and, you know, the best, I couldn't ask for a better practice aligned with the same, you know, this surgeon, he no longer puts in breast implants because he understands the risks and the illness associated with them. So he specializes in that, you know, and so I think once, again, we started studying, you know, the mind and the body and the spirit, and all of a sudden this new job opened up for me at work, which is called Whole Health. And I'm currently in the process of creating classes to teach this to my patients. So I think if you just, you know, set a goal or an intention and you live that way, that the doors will open. You just have to, again, trust.
yeah, don't worry about the how. Just figure out your why. And then with a quiet mind, a sound body, you start to recognize that everything is always working in your favor.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not, whether you agree with it or not, it's all designed to work in your favor. Like this wants you to win.
Yeah.
It's just, so if it's something your ego's not dealing with, you have to go inside and figure out why and then reroute. But it's always working for you. So the victim mentality is never going to work.
There's this book I read a couple years ago about, I'm trying to think who it is. I think it's like Robert Kiyosaki. Like, it's part of that Think Grow, one of these rich dad, poor dad.
Okay.
Rich dad, poor dad. And there's an example in the book that he says, I wanted this house and I put an offer with no money. He has no money.
Yeah.
And he goes, but I just did it. And I had 30 days or X amount of days to come up with that money.
Yeah.
Imagine, like, that's like the mentality I would have never had. Like, I'm going to go house shopping with no money, you know?
Yeah.
And he put the offer and he goes, I'll get it to you in however many days.
Yeah.
And like what happened to you, where you ended up getting a promotion, virtual, double the pay, like happened to him. He ended up somehow coming up with the money, and I forgot how. And he was able to purchase that house. And it's the unconventional, you know, approach to things. People say, you know, you first have to plan.
Yeah.
You know, you have to have, but in the planning, I always say this, I'm like, in God's realm, whoever is governing us, they have a way of doing things that we will never, I think, be able to come up with in our mind. Our imagination, I don't think, goes that far.
Yeah, not the logical mind.
Unless you tap in, it's very hard to come up with that way of how things are going to work out.
Yeah.
And so I almost find it debilitating when we set goals for ourselves with certain plans of how to get there, because it's a joke. It's probably not going to work out in that way that you thought.
Yeah.
And if you work towards there and you're pushing and pushing, and there's clearly a wall coming at you every single time, at what point are you going to say, I surrender, just take me? Like, let me just be in the right mindset. You tell me where I need to go and I'll go there.
Katie, and what happens if you do reach your goal? You have this outline and you follow it to the T and you do reach that goal. Like, that's not even certain that it's going to fulfill you.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
like, Joseph Campbell has a quote that he says, too often man climbs up to the top of his ladder only to realize he leaned it up against the wrong wall.
Yeah.
So do
Yeah.
you see? So if that outline, your heart is not going to get you to grab a pen and structure something, maybe poetry, maybe write your book, or from a creative space. But if you're living mind first, chances are it's ego, and it's not going to go that way.
And
It's
you're going to
not.
miss your potential. I mean,
Right.
you're going to miss what's really there for you.
Yeah.
I've wondered for a long, I don't know, same thing. I grew up in this space where it's like you have to be big, you have to be known, and you have to be, career driven. And if you look at my astrology chart, again, all my planets are in the house of career. So it's like, you sit back and you're like, but wait, why haven't I made it big, or why haven't I done this? And it's like, that wasn't the right time, or, you don't know what's coming. And that's kind of how I feel at this stage. I think that towards this year and that towards the end of 2024, it's like, for the first time in my life, I'm not planning anything because I just can feel that things are changing and things are coming.
Trusting.
And I grew up very shy. I didn't like to speak, to a lot of people. And
Not
now,
today, Katie.
yeah, now I'm here in a podcast, or I'm put in a position where, I'm going to be teaching classes to a lot of people, but I did a lot of one-on-one for a long time. So sometimes life is preparing you, you know, and I was told in my reading that I come from a long line of healers, of medicine women and healers. And in those ages, those people were ostracized and you couldn't speak up, or you would, what do they call it? Witches were burned at the stake, or whatever it is, so you come into this life with maybe said trauma, and it's like you came to grow from that and out of that, but you have to take the necessary steps. You're gonna fail if you just force things when they're not made for you.
Yeah. The other thing is that what you were saying, what happens when you get to the goal, right?
Yeah.
And then you realize it's not really the goal that you wanted. You're
Or
pushing
that you're here for.
But you're pushing for it, right? And I mean, some people will push hard enough and will get there and then realize, okay, let me start back again, or let me just go from here, not change the plan because he's already or she's already far in.
Yeah.
What I've noticed, and who taught me this, was really interesting. It was actually one of my former students. Now is in his 30s. And
these young people,
they
know so much more than we do.
He kept me on my toes so bad that I was like, no, I don't think I can do this. I don't think. He said, look, I just need you to commit for 3 months. We're just going to do a series of videos with no direction, just what feels good to you. And then we see where you go. I'm like, but what am I selling? Where am I going?
Yeah.
What is my offer? Like, what is this for? We don't know. That's what we're going to figure out. I go, what?
Sounds crazy, right?
Yeah,
No,
we don't have
crazy.
We don't have a marketing plan here, like a branding. Like, where's your logo? Where's my I have nothing. He goes, no, let's just go. I go, and it's gonna be this investment. I go, what? I go, I don't know if I can do this.
Yeah,
but I did, and that led me into a realm that I had no idea I would end up in, which led me here.
Yeah, you start to trust.
In a way, yeah.
Here we are.
And I'm playing now. Now I'm just playing. We're playing. I don't know where this is going either. All I know is that it feels good and it feels right. And so now what I do is I sit with the discomfort of the uncertainty of not knowing where this is going or where I'm flowing or anything. All I know is that as long as it feels good, it's going to be my outcome, wherever it is. I'm fine with it. Like, so I don't have I do have like wish list items of where I foresee, but I'm also trusting the universe or God to lead me where I need to be. And, even the hardships, it's part of the process.
Yeah.
So I'm not also being like, don't give me anything negative. Don't, just give me what you think I need. And that's really what I end up saying. I go, just show me the light because that's where I need to go.
And then you recognize, and did I die? No, I did the thing and I'm fine.
Yeah.
And that gives you confidence. And then if you really want to sit back and analyze, it's like, well, that student, that person was placed there in your life for that, to push you towards that. I mean, if it wasn't you, Katie, my friend from when I was 13 that said, come on this podcast, I would have said, no, absolutely not. I'm not doing that. That's scary.
Yeah.
But again, we're here because that, I think that the divine puts these things in your path when it's time. So if you just go for it, and what's the worst that can happen, right?
Yeah.
And you recognize that your responsibility with that mindset is just courage.
Mm-hmm.
You just need courage. And I'm sure that sounds familiar to you because you got me onto David Hawkins, and courage is at Consciousness 200.
Yeah.
So for the viewers or listeners, David Hawkins, look him up, genius. He maps out consciousness, so he brings science and spirituality and puts it in writing so that you can understand it. But with courage, that catapults you into anything.
The other thing I was going to say too is that I think that the only way that you can trust is rewiring your mind.
You got to go back.
Yeah. And for me, there was a lot of programming that no longer served me.
Yeah.
Like when you talked about your ancestors,
we
all have ancestral baggage that we carry, that we were in our mothers, that were in our previous mothers and our previous mothers and our previous mothers. And obviously we've evolved generation after generation. So the trauma that they experienced in that generation is not necessarily what we're dealing with in this one, but it's still carried on. And then you're like, but how does this serve me when I'm in a totally different environment?
Yeah.
But you're still living in those like maybe survival mode, the scarcity, different moments where really, really it mattered for them at that moment in time. But today is different. And realizing that their story is not your story.
Mm-hmm.
Scarcity is a big one, Katie. Like that's engraved in our DNA. And when you look back, you recognize, well, duh, things were scarce.
Yeah.
But we still have that toilet paper.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's scarcity mentality. So yeah, I think that's why the word abundance is now like floating around a lot. Like if you can change to that, I think that's where gratitude, like it kind of like snowballs down.
And
but
even then putting the label on like what does abundance even mean? I mean, him and I were walking the other day during my lunchtime, and it's like, this is, we're husband and wife and we're outside going for a walk in the middle of a Friday. That's really abundant.
Thursday.
Thursday.
In the middle of the week. No, it was so rich.
You know, so it's like there's things that we put labels on, and you don't even recognize the stuff that matters, really, that it also counts as abundance.
I love listening to Abraham Hicks.
Yeah.
And law of attraction. And one of the biggest things that she says, or it says, however you identify with Abraham, is moments in contrast. It's not till you go through contrasting moments where then you can really appreciate and have that like heavy gratitude for something, right? So like if you lived in crappy weather your whole life, you can move to South Florida or somewhere where it's always sunny, right? And be like, oh, I love this, and you take advantage of the day and you go outside and get some vitamin D because you really appreciate it. So like I live at the beach, and in where I live, there's a lot of Europeans and a lot of Russians. And obviously in Russia, you're dark, snow, harsh conditions. So they live at the beach all the time. They are constantly at the beach, soaking in the sun. And even on the worst day, they're still there. And they go in the water, even if it's freezing under a Miamian's perspective, but they'll still be in there. And I come to realize myself, being born and raised in Miami, I said, it's about the contrast.
Yeah.
I don't do that because I
live here.
I live here. I'm bored of it. That's it. It's over. Now it's time for something new. Meanwhile, you have other people that never had that are just like, no, this is paradise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We live in Miami. I mean, that's crazy in itself.
Yeah.
Like so many people are trying to get here.
Yeah. So, and when you say like the word trust, trust what? Because I heard you, both of you say trust, trust, trust. That's a big one for me too.
Mhm.
But how does trust what?
It's a one-word answer. The challenge is God, for starters. The challenge is there's four of us in here now, and the four of us can define this differently. So, but God, source, and knowing that God is love. So at that point, if love is on your side and love is the only thing that's actually real, then you're good. You're
Yeah.
safe. You actually start to recognize that anything outside of love is not really true.
Yeah.
It's just
A thought.
it's a thought. It's most likely fear-based or something. If we're now talking an external force, something being projected onto you, but then that's not really true for them as well. It's all love. That's hard to digest sometimes. And I actually recognize that even though we talked about some of our trials and tribulations, I still, since I come from a place of, wow, what a good life. So like, for example, the fires right now going in California, I'm not going to tell them to trust. Okay. They're in it right now.
Yeah.
I do believe in hindsight, if they hold enough space, they can get there. But like I said, it's timing on that. I guess you got to live it. It's the human experience. But I don't know. I can't really intellectualize it because it's just something I feel. It's like I've come to a place where I have no choice but to trust. Like it's the same way I married her. I told her that day, like, I really don't have a say here. Like, I don't know anything else but to be here standing right now and marrying you. Like it's a love outside. It's our higher self. It's a love greater than us, something greater than our human mind. Like you said, it's a collective force that we all can actually feel if we sit still long enough. And I actually want to circle back because it started off like a nutrition and exercise podcast. We kind of knew we wanted to go in this direction.
Yeah.
But you can't undermine that stuff. It's actually doing that stuff well that allows you to become a clear channel for this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So if your body is in a state of fight or flight, trust me, you're not walking around with an open heart.
Yeah.
If your stomach is messed up, you're not thinking clear. Like we now know more messages from the gut to brain than brain to gut. So if you're not clear and sound there, I mean, good luck. It's an uphill battle. I'm not saying you can't. Like, I mean, the Buddha figured it out. Like he was enlightened, and God knows what he ended up weighing. But none of us are the Buddha.
Yeah.
So, and the Buddha didn't live in our modern times, where we now know that in one day we internalize more information than an entire lifespan did 150 years ago.
Wow.
So if you sit with that thought, can you imagine the clutter we have? Even if it's your best sitcom on TV and it's been an amazing day, it's still at some point you have to clean up. You have to silence it because it's the closet. I don't care if it's full of all the clothes you want to keep. At some point, it still doesn't fit. So if you don't clean it up and silence it, it's not going to happen. And you definitely have a better shot if you can take care of your body and your mind.
Yeah. And living from the
so
heart,
true.
right? Like loving people, genuinely. A patient comes into my office and oftentimes it's like, oh, you're the only one that's ever listened to me, or you're so, and it's like, what do you mean? Like I was just being me, is it people don't, and it's true, you go to a medical appointment and they never even look at you sometimes, and so it's also the way you live. So we trust because we know that we're living from our heart and with a good intention, not just like, oh, I trust that one day I'm going to be rich or want something all for myself.
Our truth.
Correct.
Yeah. Once you live your truth.
Made Strong, that's your company.
Yeah.
Maybe should be Love Strong or something. Or something
That's why the motto is it starts inside.
Yeah, that's evolved because this company name's been around for so long. So it starts inside, went from you better get hype and lift heavy to, oh, maybe it's your stomach. Oh, no, actually, it's kind of your heart.
Yeah.
So it does start inside. And then you can only give what you have. So I know some people want to claim that it's kind of selfish to work on yourself, think about yourself, especially if you have kids and stuff, but you can't give what you don't have. So so if strength or being an example of strength, you can't preach strength on your kid if you're not going to be strong yourself. And that's just because we talked about made strong, but that's endless. You're only going to love to the extent that you love yourself. So yeah, it does start inside, all of it.
Well, I'm glad that you brought up, like, we're not taking away from the physical body and the importance it is to maintain. I mean, that's why we have this vessel, right? Like,
Yes.
To feel the things.
Yeah, we have the body, we have the mind, like we have the whole thing. And so, like, I teach a framework where the observer consists, which is the how you see the world, which is exactly what we're talking about, right? You have to, if you don't see it as a purpose, that you're here for something greater than just what you thought you were going to do here, then what's the point, right? So having that observer strong and staying focused is the key. But what the observer actually consists of is the cohesion between your body, your emotional state, and the words that you say externally and internally to yourself.
Yeah.
So if all of that is in alignment, then you're in full cohesion and you can then manifest and take on whatever it is that you want to accomplish.
Yeah.
But if it's not, if your body is not representing your mental, emotional state and is not representing what you're saying to someone else or what you're saying in your head, you're not going to get the results you want, and you're always going to find it. So when people's like, oh, I don't know why I've been in this position for all this time and I haven't grown, or I don't know why I haven't started my own business yet, or I don't know why this, it's because of that, right? There's something in between your body, your emotions, and your language that's not connecting. And it could be like when you were talking about where you want to go and how you're meant to do something greater and why it's taking you this long. And of course, you're still growing and learning and everything. But something else that could be like the internal dialogue that, for example, I had of self-worth, of not knowing what my self-worth was. And it's funny because I can spend this money on this pair of shoes or on, going on this trip because I see the worth, the value in it. But I won't spend that money on something like for me, for my brand, for where I'm going, because I just see it like too expensive. But then I have to go back and remember, I'm worth it. I know what I have to offer. I know what I'm giving, right? And so that was a big lesson for me to have to, help myself, like constantly remind myself. And I think that everything we've talked about and how you like happen to go from gratitude as soon as you experience that the event of losing a child prematurely, like I think we underestimate, or you're underestimating, how long it probably took for you to train your brain to go there and not go somewhere dark. Because you could have easily gone to a really dark place. So
felt like I did. It was clear enough to feel like I did. It was like, zoom, nope, not happening.
Turn this around now.
Not today, not now. And I can't take, I think I was a little pretty clear on it earlier, but I won't take full credit for that. Like I said, that it felt like a breeze, like
you think there was something greater pushing you?
Oh, for sure. Like always. I'm always being pushed. I think I get pushed out of bed every morning. So that's where the being comes in. We're at a place where we're not doing much anymore. It's just being. So that's where just circling back to something I said, like we're at a place now where we feel that how we're living is sustainable because we don't feel like we're leaking energy anywhere. And a lot of that, blowing this word up, but trust, a lot of that is that I think that comes from living in your truth. Once you're living in your truth, if it doesn't go your way, you have to accept it. Right. And if you can't, you're in your mind too much. Just knowing that you're gonna need the body and that mind and everything you just mentioned in harmony and wholeness. I guess that's where the word holistic comes from. So it's not exercise hard and then go do the brain thing at work and then let me breathe so that I can regulate my heart rate or anything. It's gotta all be in sync. So and then so that once you recognize that relationship, so like, for example, I learned maybe 4 or 5 years ago working in. I had never heard of that term. I'm going to the
Me
gym.
either.
I'm going to the gym and I got to work out. Every time you work out, you got to be able to work in, because working out actually empties your cup. Now, what are you going to do to fill it back up?
That's interesting.
Yeah. So imagine you have an entire fitness industry that wants to tell you go big or go home, or oh, you could have done more, or you're not sore, you didn't work, or any of that.
Or team no sleep, right?
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Hardcore no sleep. I learned the importance of sleep the hard way. Like I run my body to the floor and recognize, oh, maybe I should go to sleep a little earlier, knowing that I'm going to wake up equally as early.
Well, I do want to tie it back to bring it to our last question.
Okay.
So I feel like today's youth is redefining the future right now. And there's a lot of noise, a lot of information that they might or might not know how to filter through and know what's good, what's not good. And just like us and every other generation before us that never trusted what our parents said in the beginning, they're like, nah, but they don't understand. Nah, but that was in their time. This time is different. But it's true. Their time is totally different from our time.
Mhm.
Just in a matter of 10 to 20 years ago, like things were totally different. We had beepers, or we had a cell phone, and there was dial-up
pictures.
internet, no pictures, and that's it. So what advice, now looking back to the journey that both of you went through, and now they're going through it, and I see a lot of young people that are feeling lost, are not sure if being in a relationship is worth it, finding love, or that their career needs to be, really successful, all the things that we also thought about too. And also getting big, like, age, wait, what's it? Reversing, age reversal?
Yes.
Age
Yeah.
reversing and
Biohacking and
biohacking and all of that.
Yeah.
What advice would you give young people between the ages of 18 to 30 that are in this phase of trying to make life work for them and are in this process of getting fit and all of that? What advice would you give them?
First of all, I have to say, this is not scripted, and you mentioned youth. We're starting a youth program, and our first ad is expressing how it's an athletic training program, redefined, which is a word you just like randomly used. So, what you just asked is at the forefront right now for us. She mentioned that we do feel like we're at a place to serve right now, and that's who we're looking at, our youth. They've been under attack for a little while now, and what's been transpiring in the last few years, I think they are the true victims of what's happened. They don't get a say. They haven't had a say. So yeah, what one piece of advice? I think it's pretty complex, especially since we don't know the consequences yet truly, but moving their body effectively is definitely gonna get them in the right direction. So instead of thinking your way there, I think you can move your way there. So if you're on the couch, you don't need to think about going to the gym. Go for a walk, and on that walk, the gym might start to sound a little better. Find a healthy environment to do so. You don't need all the answers. Like, now we're recognizing that the first 20 years of life is just practice anyways. Like, you're supposed to make mistakes.
Yeah.
I made plenty, and I still wish I could have made a few more had I had the courage to attempt them. So yeah, like, not foolish mistakes, but just some more daring ones.
Yeah, and I think educate yourself and try to get to know yourself, right? Like, don't be afraid to be different, to be like the one that doesn't want to go for the drinks or doesn't want to do the things that everyone else is doing. Because a lot of times if you're being called to do something different, it's because you're not.
Because you are.
Yeah, and you're not on the right path. So I think, again, up until the age of 18, you're kind of living the path that your parents have mapped out for you. They're so busy. I mean, I was just talking to the owner of our previous daycare, and she was saying now they take like pre-AP classes in 6th grade, you know,
gosh.
so it's very early on that they want to intellectualize you and make you, you know, whatever it is to be run a corporate facility. And I think the jobs of the future are going to be, you know, entrepreneurship. If there's AI and robots and things that are doing all of those other jobs, then you're going to have to find your creativity, your outlet, your imagination. And you can't do that unless you truly know who you are and what your gifts are. And that, again, as we mentioned, you know, that's going to stem from your body being an antenna, and it cannot do that unless you eat healthy food, you move, you get proper sleep. You know,
Yeah.
so health is kind of like opening up yourself to everything else that's to come, but you have to quiet down the mind. You have to sit. You have to think about, you know, who am I and what is it? And that's what happened to me. I finished school and I was like, wait a minute, I got all these good grades. I graduated at the age of 16. I was in AP classes. But when I finished, it's like, what do I even like? You know, what do I want to do with my life? And I think they're in such a fast-paced world that a lot of them can't answer that question.
Well, thank you, Kat and Car.
Whoa.
You guys are amazing. I
Cool.
loved having this conversation with you guys.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
likewise.
So did
It's
we.
fun.
Till the next time.